Hey guys, so welcome to today's podcast. It's been a minute since I sat down by myself to talk about a topic here on the pod, so I'm very happy. Today, we are going to be talking about a topic that I have been dodging for the longest time. It's a popular topic, but just something that I never wanted to talk about because I know amount of judgment that I would receive. But since I'm calling this podcast Mental Health Self-Improvement Podcast, I feel like it's something I have to do at one point. So I'm gonna man up and talk about it. Ghosting. So first thing first, I will accept I am a big ghoster. I don't know if that's a word. Or I would just say it. I am literally the definition of ghosting. I am the epitome of ghosting. I ghost quite a lot, and I've ghosted a lot of people in the past. Do I do it now? Probably a lot less than before, but I have. But I just feel like I have definitely learned so much from my ghosting experiences. I would say oh my god, I talk more openly now, communicate more openly. Honestly, no. But I've come to a more healthier place. But the reason I want to talk about this is because first, I want to say there are many occasions or instances that I think people say they have been ghosted, but in reality, I wouldn't consider it as ghosting. I'm gonna get into those examples and instances, but I just wanted to say that that's not necessarily the case. But also, I think because I am the person who usually ghosts people, I can tell from my perspective that is not necessarily ghosting. I'm gonna call myself professional ghoster. Again, that's probably not a word, but I'm just saying that from my side of it, I wouldn't necessarily consider that as ghosting, but I'm gonna get into that in a minute. There are some circumstances that I don't think they are considered ghosting. There are other examples for it, but there are also some reasons why some people might ghost you that I'm gonna get into it. And biggest reason that I ghost, that I'm gonna get into it. And lastly, I'm gonna explain why at the end of the day it doesn't really matter so much, because I think we are just giving too much thought into it, and I think it's just not that deep. Again, this is coming from someone who ghosts people, so always take it as a grain of salt, in my opinion, okay? Don't come at me in the comments, don't come for me. That was my disclosure. Today's podcast is brought to you by our partner, Mint Mobile. Once again, I want to talk about Mint Mobile because there's nothing like this out there for their price range. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network, and they're offering everything you need for such affordable prices. You're not sacrificing any coverage, speed, or data. Just affordable prices for premium wireless phone service plan. And on top of it, I think switching is so easy to Mint Mobile. I think people think that it's just difficult. It only takes 15 minutes or less. If you have eSIM, you don't even have to leave your home. Just comfort of your home. Do it right away. I got my number. It was very easy. I added to my phone. I'm using it for my business. So easy, completely easy. But if you don't have eSIM, that's okay. You can just get SIM card, ship it to you for free. So that's just how easy that is. And on top of it, now they have a special promo that I want to share with you guys. Their unlimited plan, which is usually $30, and that's very affordable still. Now it's half off for $15 until July 14th. So make sure to go to mintmobile.com/WB to take advantage of this offer before it expires. Let's describe what ghosting is. In case you don't know, but I'm sure you guys know, but let's just get into it real quick. Ghosting is a term that's described when someone suddenly cuts off all the communication with another person, typically without any explanation or a warning. So essentially you're blindsided, that you're what's going on, what happened? Now, before we get into why some people would ghost you, what are some of the reasons, let me tell you some instances that I was just talking about. Like, they're not necessarily considered ghosting. Number one, I think any business partnership or any sort of like, I don't know, like you had like coffee with the person once, nothing romantic. This is completely platonic or just like business kind of relationship, business deal. And they didn't like text you the next day or next week from whatever, you even followed up and they didn't respond. I wouldn't necessarily consider that as ghosting because something didn't click, okay? It just didn't work out. That's okay. Just let it go. You know what I mean? Like, let it go. Like, why are you pushing it so much? Yes, I feel like, I know comparing to European culture, because my family is European, so I know how it works in Europe. In Europe, we never follow up, especially in like business relationships. When you follow up multiple times about something, people find you super annoying and rude, so don't ever do that in Europe. But in US, people are like, oh, you want this. Like, you are really interested in this. Yes. But in occasions, when someone doesn't respond to you like after second or third time, even after the second time, I'm like, let it go. They're definitely not interested. But from a business side of it, and you just met them once for coffee, and you were talking about a project, and it didn't work, like they didn't follow up, even you followed up after a while, I wouldn't necessarily consider it ghosting. It's just, you thought that that was going somewhere. In their head, it didn't go somewhere. I feel like sometimes when we want something so bad, we think that the vibe is there and it's going so well. In reality, though, it might not be going so well. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, it might not be. Another occasion, very similar. Like, if you went on a date with someone once, twice, even 3 times, like, just saying, and they did not respond to you after, or they just didn't text you at all, or you're the only one who was initiating it and you waited, like, you're like, oh, let me see if they're gonna text me, and they never did, I wouldn't consider that ghosting. They're literally sending you a message that they're not that interested. I just feel like because that's such an early stages of their relationship, they don't owe you an explanation. Like, they don't owe you anything, honestly. Like, they don't have to tell you that, like, they're not interested in you. I get it, sometimes some people literally need to hear that. Like, they legit need to hear that, like, oh my god, I am not that into you, or I'm not interested in you. I just feel like, again, coming from someone who does ghosting, they don't need to tell you. Like, I just feel like, why do you have to hear literally that, like, I am not into you, I'm not interested in you? Like, that's just so much. It's like, they're already giving you the message. Get the message, leave. Like, don't think about it. Another one, again, some people consider it as ghosting. On dating apps, or even on Instagram, right? Let's just say you are talking to someone, very short period of time, and they don't respond to you. And you wait, they don't respond to you. You're like, oh, I've been ghosted by this person on Instagram, or by this person on Hinge, or Tinder, whatever. You're not. Like, you weren't. Because it wasn't serious. You just started talking. If you haven't especially even met this person, it's like, no. I think you are giving way too much thought into this, and they're not that interested, they're not that invested. And when they don't respond, again, they're giving you a message that, like, they're not interested. But because you're like, oh no, they should have told me that, like, they're not interested in me. I'm like, what were you expecting? It's like this. It's like, you don't know person. It's like, again, this person is like, you haven't even met this person, right? Like, technically you guys are strangers. Just saying. You're expecting a stranger to tell you that they are not interested in you. Like, I think sometimes, this is what I would say. People think that, like, oh, because they don't tell you anything, or they didn't say anything, that there's no message behind that, like they're ghosting. There is a message behind that. When someone is not sending you a message or reaching out, that is automatically sending you essentially a message that they're not interested, or this whole thing is not working out. I think sometimes silence speaks a lot louder than actual words of saying, I'm not interested in you. Like, I think it's very clear to me, many occasions, that I have done this technique. I'm serious. Like, I have never reached out to the guy because I was like, oh, like, I was the one only reaching out, and like, I'm just gonna let it go and see if he's interested. He never texted me, he never reached out, and I think one time I even sent a message, no response back. Would I say like that was ghosting? I'm like, no, because it was not that serious, and I got the message that he's not interested. Him not sending a message, I'm like, yeah, he's not interested. I get it. But I think some of you guys, I'm just saying, and it's not just you guys, like, I know some people, even in my family, that they legit need to hear the word, they're like, I need a closure. Guess what? I think unless something is super serious, you're in like a 2-3 years relationship, or even like 6 months, 3 months relationship, I get it. That's like something commitment. That's your time. Like, you don't want to waste your time. I get that. In that case, after 3 months, 6 months, or whatever the long relationship you had, someone is ghosting you, or someone is not responding to you, I get that. Yes, that is completely considered ghosting. But in occasions like this, that's not ghosting. You guys are literally strangers, and you're expecting a stranger to give you an explanation. Newsflash, they don't owe you an explanation. Especially on social media, I'm just saying. Just because you like someone so much does not mean that they like you back, and like, just because some conversation was going does not mean that it was gonna go anywhere. And like, then you're like, oh my god, like, don't make yourself the victim. That's what I'm trying to say, that like, I have been ghosted. No, you haven't. Just, it was just not working out. Sometimes I feel like we make scenarios in our head that like, oh, it was going so well, but can you just like look at it more deeply and analyze, be like, was it really going so well, or was I just making that in my head? I don't know, sometimes I do that too. I'm not saying I don't, but I'm just saying like, and it's us who's making that happen. So, anyways, these are some of the instances that I would say it's absolutely not ghosting. They're clearly sending you a message that they're not interested in you, and I think because they're not giving you an actual proper response, that was already kind of a response. It's not ghosting. Now the reasons. Number one, this is the one I'm very guilty of. Like 9 out of 10 when I ghost, this is the reason why I ghost. I'm just like really not confrontational person, and I just sometimes I just can't have uncomfortable conversations. But let me go back to the like confrontation. I'm just not that person. I would rather jump off a cliff, I know this was very extreme to say, than confront someone. Like, I just not that kind of person. Think of me like Mary from Selling Sunset. Whenever there's an argument going on, right, or someone needs to say something, someone needs to confront, I would be like, I'm out of this. I'm exiting from this conversation. Let's table this another time. That's me. That's literally me. So, yes, 9 out of 10, when I feel like something is not going well in the relationship, in the friendship, everything, honestly. And I'm like, do I really want to tell them that I don't want to do this, or I'm not interested, or I don't want to work with you? No, I don't. So I just don't respond. I have definitely gotten much better in this occasion, especially in my business. Usually now I'm just like, again, if I have time, that's a different story. But if I don't have time, I usually don't respond. But if they are so persistent in responding, and I'm just be like, sorry, not interested, I will say that. But when it comes to friendships and relationships, 100%, I will most likely ghost. That is 100% possible. Again, short term. Anything long term, I feel like I've come to a place that I would probably have a conversation. Friendships. If you are very dear to me, there is a very 100% chance that I would rather ghost than confront you. Because I'm gonna get into that reason, but like it would be hard for me to have that uncomfortable conversation. Now, let's move on to second, which is I was gonna say now. fear of hurting someone's feelings. This is especially true, not so much with my like romantic relationships, but more with my friendships, like platonic relationships. With my friends, I value my friends quite a lot. If I consider you my friend, like I legit consider you my friend, and if something is not working out, I wouldn't want to have that conversation because it's uncomfortable, but also I wouldn't want to hurt your feelings, because 9 out of 10, sometimes the way I express myself, and I'm not trying to justify it, it can come off rude or mean, which is not my intention, but it could come off like that. I even sometimes do that with my sisters. Happens. Again, not justifying, but I'm just saying, hence I would rather not mention it at all and hoping that it resolves itself. Again, not a good response. Or I would just ghost. Like, that would just be it. I'm like, oh, this friendship is not working. I would try to not respond, or respond less and less, then eventually not respond at all, hence ghosting. And that kind of ends the relationship, friendship for me. Yes, it sounds very immature, I can see that. But I'm just saying that I would rather not hurt my friends' feelings. I know it's gonna hurt them like this as well, but I feel like this hurts less in my head. Maybe it still hurts the same, but in my head it hurts way less. 3, this is more true when it comes to my romantic relationships, and also most people who ghost too. Lack of interest or investment, like meaning like they're just not that interested in you. And what I was mentioning in the beginning, that like, yeah, sometimes they lose interest. Like, yes, after the 3rd date and stuff, like I was just mentioning, that's not really considered dating. But like even like after a couple weeks or months, right, dating, and they ghost you, yeah, I get it. They didn't respond and you wasted your time, you did this, right? But yes, that is considered ghosting, that's for sure. I would say that because it's considered like somewhat short-term relationship. But it is kind of also showing you that like they're just not interested. Very recent thing I had, I wouldn't necessarily call it like a relationship, but something that was going on an ongoing basis. But then I realized that like, oh, like I feel like I think I am the one putting too much effort into this. Let me see if he would. And he didn't. He did not send in a message, nothing. And I'm like, oh, this is it. Like, I get the message that he lost interest. And that's okay, right? Like, people lose interest all the time. I think sometimes we are just like trying to be like, oh my god, ghosting is so bad. Like, ghosting is like so immature. Like, people should be more honest and like open, be more open when it comes to communicating. Get it? I totally get that. Like, yes, communication is super important, but I just feel like everyone has a different way of communicating. You cannot expect everyone to communicate the same way. Just saying. Not trying to justify, but just trying to say that. Because I think, like, my sisters, like, some of them, like, well, one of us have 2 sisters. I don't know why I said some of them. One of my sister, well, actually, they're both Pisces, so never mind. They're both very, like, they communicate very openly. And sometimes in a way that they are super, super open. I am not so much, as I am talking about this topic. I am not like that. Actually, a lot of guys are not like that. Yes, there are some guys that are open about their communications, about what they want and everything, which I get, but I don't know, I'm just not that person. I ghost, but at least like I feel like with ghosting, I'm sending you a message that I'm not interested, rather than saying to your face that I'm not interested. Because first, because it's such an uncomfortable conversation, I feel like I would literally be sweating writing that text message, or I would literally ask AI to write a text message for me about that and be like, I'm not interested. It's just not for me. Especially if I have to have that conversation in person, I would literally die. Like, literally, I would be sweating, like, turning red, like, not it. You see, right? Like, I get it. Sometimes you have to be uncomfortable to make certain decisions. But I'm just saying, like, you should also accept that this might be some people's way of communicating. Lastly, this is one of the reasons that people put it, but I would say out of all the reasons I have ghosted people, like maybe 10, actually not even 10%, maybe 5% this was the reason that I ghosted, but maybe 5%. But 95% I ghosted for all the other reasons I just mentioned. People could be busy or overwhelmed. Yes, there have been times, I have to be very, very honest, that I didn't do it on purpose. Like I read the message or I was like, yeah, I will get back to you, that I never did. It wasn't necessarily on purpose, and this happened a couple times in college, a couple times in grad school or other times. I just got busy and just never responded. I honestly forgot, and they thought I ghosted them. And I'm trying to remember, what was they asking, because I don't remember, honestly. But I'm just saying, like, just like, it was never on purpose. But that was literally maybe 5% of the reasons. Everything else I just mentioned, like, I was avoiding confronting someone. I didn't want to hurt their feelings, or like I just lost interest, but I didn't want to tell to their face. I get it. Like those are the reasons that I mostly said it. But like this last one, it was like maybe like not even 5%, maybe like 2%. Because even if I have been busy, I usually never ghost people unless that's my intention. Because if I'm ghosting someone, that's most likely like 99% is my intention. But there have been few occasions, very, very few occasions that I have ghosted someone because I was busy. Now, let me just paraphrase this and end this ghosting episode, because I feel like I'm already hating myself for talking about this. I want to say that I think, yes, it is important to have open, honest conversation with people, for sure, 100%. If you can communicate that openly, good for you, you're super mature, go for it. But just because someone is ghosting you, don't internalize this and think that like that is all on you, because you're less of a person, you're not as great, you suck at this, you suck at that. Like, it's not about you. I just feel like it's just like the vibe is off, or like it was just not the match. Like it didn't work out. I feel like we internalize this so much, thinking like, oh my god, it must be my fault. Maybe I'm not that kind of person, or I'm not that great. No, like, you must be a great person. It's just like, you are in a great match. I feel like we never think about this sometimes. Like, you could be a great person. You could literally be like the hottest person, the richest person, the kindest person, but you might not be a match with everyone. Like, just that's the case. And I don't think you should like correlate that ghosting is equal to you being a lesser person, or like being a less valued person, because that's not that. It just means that like it wasn't a match, and that's the end of the scenario. Like, seriously. Anyways, guys, I wanted to end it on that note and make this brief episode talking about ghosting, and hope this made sense from a professional ghoster to why someone ghosts other people. Hopefully that made sense, and hopefully you guys understand my case of point. If you guys like this episode, please don't forget to subscribe or give a thumbs up on YouTube and all the other podcasts. Definitely subscribe and like leave a review. Reviews help tremendously, so if you're listening to this on Spotify, definitely leave reviews. I have a lot of my listeners coming from Spotify, so that would be greatly appreciated. And I'll see you guys next week. This is another episode with a guest.